Hello once again, Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. Welcome to The Verdict. And on today's show, we come back and meet an old friend, a young man who's an old friend.
A young man that's an old friend is right, and we get an update on what Wes Lane is doing, former Oklahoma County District Attorney, prosecutor in the Terry Nichols trial down in McAlester, Oklahoma, a number of years ago, and is now in private practice and doing some other things with the Burbridge Foundation. We're going to find out what he's been doing. He's an author.
Yeah,
I've seen the book. I have as well. We'll talk about his book and where you can get it, and we'll shamelessly promote it. But it's a good read and worth promoting. But Wes has always been a good guy, always generous with his time, and we're going to find out for ourselves what he's been doing.
All right, it's all coming up today on The Verdict. Stay with us.
The idea of sending American money out of our own economy these days for foreign oil is madness. Yet we're spending $25 billion a month on foreign oil. America's 100-year supply of natural gas can break this pattern and strengthen our economy. See how it can create jobs, generate clean electricity, fuel our cars, and protect our environment at chk.com. Chesapeake, America's champion of natural gas.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
There's no waiting at the St. Anthony ER.
No waiting.
Announcing the end of ER waiting at St. Anthony Hospital. Go to saintsok.com and reserve your time online.
Why didn't we think of that?
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
We are just delighted today to have back a friend for his 7th appearance on The Verdict, Wes Lane. Used to be the Honorable Wes Lane. Not that he's less honorable, but he's Wes Lane.
Glad you caught that.
I wanted to straighten that out. Native of Oklahoma City, did his undergraduate in law work at the University of Oklahoma. Served as a prosecutor here in Oklahoma County for over 20 years. For 5.5 years, he was the Oklahoma County District Attorney at the time, among other things, when the state of Oklahoma tried Terry Nichols for the Oklahoma City bombing cases for down in McAlester that you heard about on our 500th show from the Honorable Steve Taylor. In 2008, Wes became president of the Burbridge Foundation. Since that time, he has produced a television documentary on crystal meth called Crystal Darkness. He also has become a published author on a book we're going to talk about called Amazingly Graced, and we're going to be visiting with Wes about that. Once again, his 7th appearance here with us, and we're sure glad to have you back.
Well, you know, this is great. This is almost like a homecoming. I'd forgotten it had been 7 times. I told you guys that I have 2 of these in my cupboard, but now I know where the other 5 went.
Those
people have been stealing from me.
Well, they must not have been very good. You threw them against the wall or something.
Oh no, not in my house.
You must be running into people that see you and go, "What are you doing now?" And so since you've kind of dropped out of the main spotlight of public officialdom,
which is good.
I know what you've been doing, but tell everybody else.
I tell you, I have just been enjoying the last 4 years immensely. One of the things that I'm doing is enjoying not being in the public spotlight. One of these days, you'll and you know exactly
Sounds
what
pretty good,
and you
right
know
now.
what I mean. That's exactly right. So it's all relative. Be careful what you wish for. I am president of the Burbridge Foundation, as Kent said, and we are just engaged. You know, we're engaged in things that are joyful, that are uplifting. Things that are, the Burbridge Foundation was started by my grandfather back in the late 50s, and he was a successful businessman here, and it's a Christian foundation, and we are primarily interested in things that influence culture, families, and since I came aboard, we're particularly focused on leadership and Christian leadership development.
And your new book, tell us about it, Amazingly Grace. We have a picture, I think, of the cover.
There it is.
Well, I tell you.
Why'd you write it? Let's start at the beginning. One day you said, you know what, I'm going to write a book.
Yes, I was sitting out on a rock looking out over the sea. No, I tell you, you know something, you all doubtless have viewers right now that are experiencing great adversity. They may even be wondering about, is there a God? If there is one, where is he in my experience right now? We've all been through that. We certainly, Lori and I, my wife, have certainly experienced some great adversity in our lives, and very publicly, I might add. And so what I enjoy doing is encouraging people in the reality of God in our lives. He's real. He's in our workplace. He's in our everything, in our every place. And so I wrote this, Mick, because I get great joy out of encouraging people in that subject matter. And so I saw a very loving God very aggressively involved in my work as DA or in the life in my home place and the difficulties that Lori was having. And so it's kind of one of these deals, you know, when you've seen something like that, it's kind of hard to keep your mouth shut. At least it is for me. Yeah. And so I had to have a little time on my hands too. And so this was a lot of fun getting to do this.
Is the God in your book, is he watching after you, or is he just looking at you? What?
He is watching. He is not only watching, but he is listening, and he is responding. You know, I started to entitle this "A Skeptic's Journey Through Faith."
Now, see, I would never think of Wes Lane as being a
skeptic.
skeptic.
I was big time skeptical.
Well, you
Really?
refer to yourself in the book, which I have read a good part of, as a recovering skeptic about God.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, you know, when I say recovering, that means I've not fully recovered. In other words, it's because all of us have these moments in which we doubt. We doubt something. We're skeptical. Oh gosh, is he really going to do this? Or how am I going to survive in this? And so when I started off my journey, I mean, like so many people in Oklahoma, you're in church a lot as a kid, but boy, there was just a real disconnect for me. And I actually I didn't have anything to do with the God stuff until well into my 20s. In fact, I remember having a conversation in college with my roommates, saying, that God stuff, maybe when I'm some old guy or something like that, maybe I'll take a look at it then. But the truth is that as you and I are lawyers, we show me the evidence, prove it to me. I mean, that's what we go. We're a skeptical bunch, but there comes a point in time in which the evidence builds, in which you're forced to either make a conclusion or not. It's kind of like in the John Hamilton case. I make reference to that in this case. I use that as a metaphor for this because when I first showed up as an assistant DA to prosecute John Hamilton, I met a courtroom full of. It was a bond hearing. There was a courtroom filled with about 100 women in there that were his patients. And when I walked in there, the skepticism and the hostility was rife. But as the trial progressed, as they saw evidence produced, then what you saw is the skepticism just start walking off. It was the same thing in faith.
Bring that trial up. Tell us a little bit more about the case. What was the case about?
Well, on Valentine's Day of 2001, John Hamilton murdered his wife, Susan. And they were the classic society couple. I mean, this murder has actually been on national television in multiple, 3 different venues that I can think of.
And in what neighborhood? In
Quail Creek.
Quail Creek.
To everybody who ever saw them, they were madly in love. I mean, they were always affectionate in public. And so when he gets charged with the murder of his wife, nobody could believe this. This was your poster couple for a loving marriage.
And you're the prosecutor.
I'm the prosecutor. Mr. Bob Macy assigned me to the case. And ultimately, in the first year of my role as district attorney, I prosecuted him and convicted him.
So these 100 women that were there, which side of the argument?
They definitely weren't on my side. They were there because they were supporting him because they could not fathom their skepticism because they had not seen any facts.
I see.
Was such that they refused. They were just kind of going with their gut, and their gut was, this man couldn't possibly have done that. The evidence couldn't possibly show that. Well, and so with our life with faith, and so like my life with faith, as things unfold, and as I start seeing, oh my gosh, this happened, and that happened, and this response happened, particularly as a trial attorney, in which you're familiar with circumstantial evidence, sometimes far more powerful than direct evidence. It's like there is no rational, reasonable conclusion you can come to outside X happened or X did this because of all of the connecting of the dots. There is no reasonable explanation. And I saw that happen time and time again. And so so I came to a point in life that I could no longer stand honestly on my skepticism, and I had to make a decision. So, and that's has proven to be a good one.
In the case you refer to, once these women had seen the evidence you presented, were they swayed by the end of the trial?
They were gone.
Was it different?
You know, it was like dead leaves falling off an autumn tree. The courtroom over the period of the trial just started emptying out. And now there's a small group that always stayed with him. I don't care. We could have had a videotape of him killing her, and they would have never followed through. And I make in the book I talk about different instances of murder.
Let us get to a break. But before we go to the break, his status today. Where is he in the legal system?
He has worked his way into a seat at Big Mac. I mean, you don't get to go to Big Mac. And there's an interesting story behind that, but I'll not digress.
Okay, another show perhaps. The book is amazingly graced. The guest is Wes Lane. We'll be back with one more segment right after this.
The thing that has made the most sense for me is realizing that I am still an educator, and that is what I do at the Chickasaw Nation. I'm Dr. Amanda Cobb-Greetham. I'm a historian, and I'm Chickasaw. The Chickasaw Cultural Center is amazing. It is a very, very special place devoted to the sharing and to the celebration of Chickasaw history and culture. State-of-the-art technology, exhibits that are not like anything I've ever seen. The Spirit Forest is incredible, and you feel as if you have actually just walked into a forest with huge trees all around you. It's timeless, and yet it's sort of also representative of our time depth, to really just sort of reach through time and touch the past. By the end of the exhibits, you really have a sense of Chickasaw cultural and political resurgence and the extent to which we are a healthy, dynamic, and vital tribe today. Chickasaws have always been an inclusive people. This is something for the whole community and for the state of Oklahoma.
What's your idea of security? A good-paying, sustainable job, a solid economy, less dependence on foreign energy? We can achieve it with the help of one industry, American oil and natural gas. It creates energy, jobs, and a strong economic base we can rely on. New technologies open vast reserves that will supply our energy needs far into the future. Because security, by every definition, is worth protecting.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
We're back on The Verdict. We're visiting with Wes Lane and discussing his book, Amazingly Graced. Wes Lane was the former district attorney for Oklahoma County. He has an amazing journey, a life's journey, and then a professional journey, and a lot of it's capsulated in this well-written book. Kent, where to from here?
I was taken by your statement in your book at the beginning part about how you were in fact embarrassed, was your word, to put your thoughts on paper. Why was that, and has that abated?
Well, I tell you what, the embarrassment was out of the fact that after I had been writing on this a while, I mean, the goal that I wanted to talk about was, it was almost like a documentary on what I'd seen God do, showing up in murder cases or in this or that. And so I wanted to talk about that. Well, after writing a number of chapters, I found myself looking back and realizing, gosh, I certainly seem to be in this a lot. And it was a little embarrassing because it reminded me of the old story of the Hollywood producer, and they're so self-focused and everything, and so they're having the big conversation. They finally finished the conversation and said, well, enough about me, what do you think of me? And so that's what I was thinking. I thought, golly, this is bad. But then I had a friend remind me, the deal is that when you were the witness, you're the witness. And so you're kind of forced to get in the middle of that. So my embarrassment was about, I didn't want the story to be about me.
Mm-hmm. The term stove toads, what do you mean by that?
Well, stove toads is I think the symptomatic, and I started, back when I was running a juvenile division of the district attorney's office, I would use this as an analogy because it's really speaking to culture. Our culture today, and when I would be speaking at that time about them, I was talking about how we've become so numbed out to things taking place in our culture that we don't even respond anymore. And whether it's as adults seeing our children, either like watching this or that on TV, or hearing this kind of music, or we see the cover of People magazine maybe glorifying something that we know is detrimental, like hey, let's go have a baby at 15 years old. And well, it may look beautiful in Hollywood, but we've become so numbed out to that. I liken it to the deal of, well, and I know, Mick, you know how to do this, I'm sure, as a part of your anti-obesity campaign, how to cook a toad. You can't cook a live one. Because they're high protein, and I know that's very important to you. So you can't take a toad and toss him in a bowl of water because he'll jump out.
He'll jump out because it's hot.
That's exactly right. But if you can put one on the stove and turn it on low, and he'll sit there and cook. And so we, as the folks who are supposed to be, the culture has been on our watch, have allowed our children to be influenced very negatively. Because in many ways we just don't even notice, and we've gotten numbed out.
Did you find that in your role as head of the juvenile division at the DA?
Oh, it was
were
rife.
You just numb
it was rife.
to society's woes?
And that's when it really started impacting me, because I could see that these kids were, it was very frustrating, because it was like they were on one of those belts, those courier belts that, like they're on their way. They're here in juvenile, then they're going to be in the adult system, and a lot of that was because of the failure of us to really speak out. Hey, that's wrong. You should. Why are we letting these video games exalt this kind of death and mayhem, and why are we as parents just stepping out of out of our job and our role. So we're numbed out.
What do you, if you had one takeaway from someone who read the book, what are you hoping it is?
You know, the comments that I've gotten is that people have been encouraged in a big God. He is not somebody sitting up on a cloud eating bonbons as we languish down here. He is a loving and responsive God, and he is interested in our circumstances. And there is a method of getting to know him and to pursuing that, and I am awed by that.
Let me talk about the most significant person in your family, Lori. You were very candid about some difficulties that she has encountered with your support always. I was interested in your discussion about her support for the book. Would you tell our viewers what her support was when you were going to kind of lay everything bare in the book?
Yes, and I had to get her permission because I told her, you know, some of the most remarkable ways that we saw God show up in very, very real ways, which we talk about. I couldn't really, if for this to be effective, for people to really be encouraged, because as I say, there are people out there wanting to, you know, people don't want to hear platitudes. People don't want to hear theory of this or theory of that. They want to know, have you been through the fire? Mm-hmm. And so to do that, I had to ask my wife, Lori, honey, we need to be really transparent about this. And she didn't even hesitate. Now, my wife is a very shy person, as both you guys know. And so that was quite a step for her to be willing to do that. But I tell you what's really been encouraging is after the book has been out, she has had, I mean, she was dreading this coming out just a little bit, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. But she has just been so lit up that through her difficulties and way back then on the prescription drug addiction issues and all the public embarrassment, she has been so encouraged that people have actually been encouraged by her willing to speak out on this. And so I think her attitude is totally different today than before.
Well, the thing that struck me is the difference between, okay, Wes, it's all right, go ahead, you have my permission. That wasn't her attitude as I read it. It was, you better do it. You need to do it.
Yeah, and in fact, it was her comment specifically. Her comment specifically was, well, you know, we don't need another fairy tale, and so she wanted me to lay it on the line. Yeah. And so, but again, in one of these deals, it was. She knew it needed to happen for it to be done correctly. It needed to be honest. So.
We have just about a minute left, but I wish you'd, as quickly as you can, but it's important that the viewers hear about your last night in McAllister after the Terry Nichols trial and at the Baptist Church.
Yeah,
about 30 seconds.
This was such a difficult case to even put on, so much opposition. I ended up deciding to do it, as everybody knows, and the response, what made it all worth it, was when I saw a woman who had lost her mother in the attack go up to one of my prosecutors and hug her and say, thank you. Up until today, no one had been convicted for the murder of my mother. That goes a long way as a balm for all the political heat one takes, and so that was memorable, very memorable deal.
All right. Wes Lane is our guest. We're going to take a break, come back, and we'll tell you how you can get his book. Kent and I will have that final word. Right now, we'll say goodbye to Wes.
Thank you very much.
Until you come back for your 8th visit on the verdict.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
We'll be right back.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
In Oklahoma, we enjoy a high quality of life due to good, well-paying jobs. Commercial real estate professionals play a significant role in bringing new businesses and investment to Oklahoma. The commercial real estate community has come together to market Oklahoma's commercial properties nationwide through a free public website, okcommercialproperty.com. We are invested in keeping Oklahoma strong and growing because economic development ensures quality of life.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information. And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers. We're wrapping up a show with Wes Lane and discussing his book, Amazingly Graced.
We, from time to time, are asked to bring authors on that have published books, and we often do, and we always take a look at them. This is an exceptional book. I will say it just this way. Of course, the subject matter is very interesting. It's all true, and it's local. It's of an origin that we're all familiar with. But one thing that distinguishes this book, in my mind, from many that we have talked about is how well written it is. It's beautifully written. It will catch you, and you will want to read it all.
It's amazingly graced. And let me give you about our website information, theverdict.tv. Go there, tell us about a guest you'd like to see on an upcoming edition of The Verdict.
Mardell, Amazon.
Kent, yeah, the book is available at Mardell's and Amazon. We'll see you next week.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.